Good morning, it's time for a Cup of Joe Comments Edition.
I want to be a cup of Joe, first sip in the morning.
Zachi Love says, who is the Cup of Joe singer? The song Cup of Joe that I use, I try to credit it at the end of all my videos in the credits that roll through, but the singer is Daniel Ho. You can find the song on YouTube, that's where I found it. It's an awesome song, so yeah, it's not me singing. Sometimes people wonder if it's me. It's not me. You don't want me hear me singing. Actually, I have some songs, you should watch them. May Mazi says, regarding marriage, I think you're right. To prevent interracial marriages, marriage was basically made illegal unless you had a license from the government. See, that's the thing. Like, marriage licenses first came across so that we could prevent certain people that we didn't think should get married from getting married. So rather than including people in the licensing process, I think we should get rid of the licensing process. Jen G says, being from a multinational family, the only concern I'd have about the state doing away with the legality of marriage is managing immigration issues. You're right, I didn't think about that. That would be a problem. Zev Online says, it took me a very long time to do my kitchen because I had to evaluate every single pot, pan, and dish and say, is the stress from this clutter worth making other people comfortable? Most people nowadays don't really care what they eat off of as long as it's clean. So yeah, it took some effort to unlearn my mother's teachings. That's awesome. Like, you're right though. Like, people don't care about fancy dishes or what they're eating off of. Like, just have a few dishes for them to eat with, have a few cups for them to drink out of. How much company do you really have? I mean, seriously, we don't have to do what our parents did. That's just not how it has to be. Prue Down says, about the dressing in the laundry room thing, makes a lot of sense. Just have baskets for each person and throw the clothes in there. LOL, who cares about creased clothes? Be bold. My way of getting around the piles of clothes with 5 people in our house is to have less clothes altogether. Oh, and nice mug. Thank you. This is actually exactly what we're doing right now. We have everyone has their own bin of clothes. Actually, that's not true. The girls have their own. So it's like, I have a bin of clothes, Aaron has a bin of clothes, Damien has his bin of clothes, and then the 2 girls share a bin of clothes. And that's just where we keep everything. And it's so much easier because no one has to worry about folding all the laundry or hanging up all the laundry. If I see clothes lying around, I just throw them in the bin. Just throw them in the bin. Mary W says, I've slowly gotten rid of the majority of my books, but my children get to keep theirs. I still have lots left, but I feel it is disrespectful to get rid of all their things. You are so right. It is disrespectful to just get rid of all of someone's things. However, there are easy ways that I think, simple ways you can pare down with your kids. One way to do it is just by looking at the books that they haven't read in a while and just say, hey, you guys haven't read these in a while. You don't mind if I get rid of them, do you? But one thing I do sometimes is I will just hide stuff. Like, I'll just put it away somewhere in a cupboard. And then if no one asks for it within like a couple weeks, they obviously didn't really use it, don't even notice it, and you can just go ahead and let it go. Rebecca Christopher says, I really like that you aren't defensive when answering comments. What is that supposed to mean? What are you trying to say with that? Jeez. A severe dust allergy pushed me into going all digital. We have a 2-year-old and we go to the library and have some physical copies of books for her. I think it's definitely important for kids to learn to read real books and get that experience. Why do we think that's important? Like, is that actually valuable? I think it is, but, I actually did read somewhere, I've heard that our brains are being rewired and the way we read from a screen affects our brains differently than the reading from a page. I'm not sure, I don't know much about that, but it's interesting because it does seem important to read something physical right there, but I guess your computer's physical right there. You're reading from a screen, page screen, like does it matter? I think it does, but can't give me any facts to back it up, but they might be floating around out there. Thank you, Rebecca. Brooke Marie says, the way some people are with collecting books, that is how I am with collecting mugs. I have maybe 20 plus mugs that have filled a whole cabinet in my kitchen. I absolutely love all of them. They are the things that make me smile when I have my cup of coffee in the morning, and that's part of the reason why I have a hard time parting with them. I have fun getting to choose what mug I want to use every time I have a cup of tea or some coffee, but I know no one needs that many mugs. I'm still working on trying to part with ones that I don't use as much or maybe don't have as much meaning to me. That does actually sound exactly like at least how I felt with my book collections. Like, you have all these different ones. You love being able to choose which ones they kind of tell you, they kind of keep a history of your past, where you've been, the things that you liked and like now and stuff. But it gets to the point where you start thinking, okay, I haven't used this in a while, let's start getting rid of them. And I think it's important to remember that it's okay to wait until you're ready to take it to a certain level. Like if you're just getting rid of 1 or 2 here and there, that's fine. You don't necessarily have to go down to all of, just down to 1, and you don't even necessarily have to have a goal. You just have to know in your mind, I don't need all these things, and I'm just gonna let that simmer in my brain for a while and then see what happens. And I think eventually you might go down to just a few, or maybe even just 1, who knows. But it's a process. Like, it took me so long to go down on my books, and so yeah, encouragement to ya. Victoria Matter says, you don't seem crazy about your job teaching religion, yet you are religious. Why? Oh man, you are opening a can of worms. But are you asking why am I religious, or why do I teach religion? I don't think there's one specific reason I am not necessarily a fan of my current job as a youth minister. I think it goes back to the way I feel about education and the education system. And I'm not in the education system per se, like I don't teach in a school. It's a once a week thing. But it's still the idea of me just like spewing out facts or knowledge or what I think on these people. And I think it's so hard for me because I live such an intentional life and I see things, I think, so much more clearly than many people do because of the ways that we're brought up and the ways that we are cultured to think. And these kids don't have any kind of these intentional ways of living or looking at things, and their parents don't and their peers don't. So it's hard for me to try to shake them out of the ways they live. And I don't know if I should be teaching them maybe just about the Catholic faith or like how they should live. Like one of the main things that I've always tried to hammer home with my kids is like nothing I teach you matters unless you're praying on a daily basis. Like unless you're talking to God every day and reading scripture regularly, like what's the point of knowing all these things or going through the hoops of going to this event in church and all these things if you're not even trying? Like, I don't know. I guess I feel like they don't necessarily really care at all, and their parents don't care, at least about what I see as authentic spirituality and authentic Christianity. To be honest, at least in the community in which I live, most high schoolers, their main concern is sports or grades or, you know, who they are dating or like relationships. That's like what they care about. And it's not even that I expect them to like, I don't know, be talking about Jesus all the time or something, but to just maybe think about, I don't know. I really don't. Which is probably why I'm bad at my job and don't necessarily like it. I don't know, I just think that this is not my calling. I mean, hey, if you got a job offer for me, you let me know and I'll come work for you. I've said it before, I'll say it again, my dream job would be just traveling around and speaking at churches or wherever, just traveling with my family in an RV, documenting the process. Maybe I need to write a book first, you know, in order to be like, hey, let me come speak at your church. I wrote this book, so obviously I have things to say. I don't know, I have a lot more to say on that topic now that I actually start thinking about it, but we'll just leave it at that for now. Matthew D.N. Parsons says, going to look at my books hoard again this weekend for review to pass on. Gulp. Good luck, Matthew. Best of luck to you. I know you can do it. You can be radical. Mallory Jennings says, radical livers, bah ha 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 ha. Come on, radical liver, like, wouldn't you want a t-shirt that has like a liver on it and it says radical liver? It'd be great, wouldn't it? Finding a Way says they start reading in kindergarten. There are requirements before they are ready for kindergarten. Pretty crazy. At our school, it is all day too. Yeah, what's up with that? Like, kindergarten is supposed to be the thing that like starts getting you ready for school life, and you know, and yet nowadays, if you're like bring your kid in, and you're like, okay, little Johnny wants to be in kindergarten. Like, well, does little Johnny know his alphabet? What can he add? Can he put blocks to recreate a shape? Like, there's like requirements that you're supposed to know before you go to school, which I guess is encouraging homeschooling in a way. It's weird. It's messed up. Stephanie R. says, I checked out your Patreon page a while ago, and the only reason I didn't consider supporting was that there was no direction for where the money was going. Was it for new equipment, bills, travel? You answered it here, but I think it would be beneficial to outline your use of the money on the page. So aside from people seeing you create videos, they could see you say, I'm going to do such and such, and then actually see you put the money to that purpose. Would be very satisfying. Even if you said, I would like support to be able to bring radical living content to you. then that is legitimate because videos take time and effort, and you should be compensated if people choose to find it valuable. Don't discount what you have to offer. Good luck. Thank you, Stephanie. You make a great point. Like I said, when I made my Patreon page, I just threw it up there. I didn't say anything else, like why should you give me money? I don't know. But you're right, these do take a lot of time and effort and thought, and I shouldn't discount that. My time's as valuable as anyone else's, right? So you're right, I think I will think about that and be more specific on my Patreon page of what the money's going to and all that. And I'll try not to be bashful about saying, hey, consider throwing some money my way if you really like my content. Speaking of Patreon, Linda Thomas says, yay, you're so welcome. This video sure made our day. We're happy to be some of your radical livers or shoeless jokers. The kids were super excited to hear you talking about our family, and my crappy morning has now turned awesome. I am so glad to hear that, Linda and Thomas's all. I'm so glad that my channel is going in this direction. I've really enjoyed making these comments videos. I know they're long, but this is the kind of interaction that I really enjoy having with you guys. I feel like we're actually sitting down with a cup of joe and having a convo. So Linda, thank you so much. I'm glad to have helped brighten your day as you brightened mine. Loretta Calling says, I'm an SJ freeloader. I'm poorish. Could I maybe have one of those flip-flops with the holes in them? Don't worry about that. It's okay to be a freeloader. It's all about the freeloading here on YouTube anyways, right? But yes, Loretta, you certainly can. Consider that flip-flop yours. Sherry Robinson says, to which I say, does it look like a heart? Is it working? Is it good? Are we good? CMS Sultana says, the education of the young. Doesn't a lot of it seem geared towards creating, satisfying, managing parental expectations? And if the kiddos were surveyed and their opinions taken into consideration, school would look very different. Or is that utopian dream too radical? I don't think that's too radical. Like, obviously we're never going to come up with a perfect education system necessarily. But if we're going to have an education system, don't we want it to be the best it can be? And why doesn't what the kids want to actually learn about and what their actual interests are, why is that rarely ever taken into consideration? I think part of the problem is we want education, the education system, to do everything, to teach them everything. Like, we don't have one focus. Like, is it about getting them into college? Is it about teaching them practical skills? Is it about teaching them how to think or versus what to think? And it's like we almost want it to do all of those things, and it can't, and it needs focus. John Jandernaw says, Joe has the coolest handwriting ever, though. Yes, that is true, but that is only if I'm using one of these pens. They're ridiculously expensive, but they're my favorite pens, and if I'm not writing with this, then my handwriting is just crap. Now, some of you guys gave me some great advice in my whole struggle with Dr. Pepper. Mandy R says, interesting that you said you started drinking soda after you lost time to pray in the morning. Meditation is a powerful thing to quit addictions. Very true. Just watching how your mind works and how cravings come and go often give you the self-control you need. That's true, too. Like, I've heard, you should watch the temptation come, sit with it, and then let it pass. I'm not very good at that letting it pass thing, apparently. Finding a Way said, maybe blindfold yourself while shopping. That's a great idea. Jacob Erickson said, move to Denmark, Joe. I don't think I've seen a Dr. Pepper in any store for a long time. Very few stores have them, I'm sure. No Dr. Pepper, but we have a Catholic church in the town I live in. Bring your family. Denmark's a cool place. Alright, I have 2 questions to ask you. Number 1, what are the homeschooling regulations like? And number 2, what are the winters like? These are the 2 questions I ask of anywhere that I think about maybe living, because if the homeschooling laws are too strict or if it's illegal, I'm out. And if the winters are too long and cold, I'm out. And apparently I could move to Australia too, because Ruby Roberts says there is no Dr. Pepper in Australia. I think they had it at one point, but it never took off. Same with Mountain Dew. That's because Mountain Dew tastes like crap. Katie4 says, I actually stopped drinking pop a long time ago, and I have no idea why. Now I'm addicted to tea, though. Well, maybe I just am trying too hard. Maybe I just need to relax and just let it just slip away. Maybe I'll just stop and suddenly find myself drinking tea. I really want to drink tea. I want to be a tea drinker. Whenever I make a cup of tea, it just ends up getting cold. I have often thought about moving to Australia. I don't know why. Princess Allie says, there are videos on the YouTube of how cremation works, but not for the faint of heart. Well, Princess, you are right. I certainly did look up some videos. I did not watch any of the graphic ones. I just didn't. I was not in the mood. But it turns out that if you get cremated, like the body, some of the ashes get mixed in with other people's ashes. So like when they give you the urn thing or whatever, they give you a disclaimer that says it might have some bits of other people's ashes in it and maybe some dust from the air, you know, just whatever's floating around in their room when they do it. Oh, also, some of your ashes will just end up naturally going to the floor and they just sweep those away. Like, what? Okay, this just affirms my belief I do not want to be cremated. Victoria Matter says, how old are your kids? In what ways do you help them find or express identity? My oldest, Cordelia, she is 4 years old. Actually, she's turning 5 this month. Esther is 3 and Damien is 1. I do not really subscribe to this idea of identity that seems to have a hold of so much of our minds. Like, I think our culture has become so self-focused and focused inward on what we like and what we want and how we feel and who we are that we've lost sight of our purpose and why we're here on this earth. Like, at the end of the day, I don't think it's important that you express yourself. I think it's important that you bring something to the world and make the world a better place. So with my kids, I don't want them to think that their clothes should showcase who they are or how they feel, or that they need to do things necessarily to, expression is, there's different kinds of expression, obviously. Everyone needs to express their feelings or express their thoughts, but I don't know, having an identity, like saying like, I am this type of person, I don't know, I don't want them to be boxed in like that. I want them to be focused outwards on how can I help people, who needs my help, what can I do to make the world a better place, not focused inward on who am I and how do I express my inner selfness. I don't know if that makes any sense. Monica V says, you've always looked like a Franciscan to me. St. Francis rocks. Yes, he does. What else do you do to be more like him and therefore more holy? Wow, you guys are asking the hard-hitting questions. The short answer is not nearly enough. Not really much. My prayer life has recently been thrown out of whack, which I can't blame Aaron's getting this job for. Like, I just haven't made it a priority to find a different time, make more space for prayer. But obviously, just besides the way I dress, I try to live as simply as possible. Not just with my physical possessions, but with how I think and how I interact with people. And simplicity was one of St. Francis's main messages, obviously. And our last question of the day, Miss Rugby Owl says, where have you been making your current videos? At home or work? I am right now in my office at work. I'm not at work, like I'm not supposed to be working right now. It's Saturday. But yes, this is my office complete with phone, printer, all the trappings of work. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know any other questions you'd like me to answer in future videos like this. This has been your Cup of Joe.
Rating me in comments, it's fun to do. Feeling worse about myself all because of you. But the joke's on you, so keep saying what you kiss.
Love you, bye. Oh, and then we have like an underwear bin that everyone shares. Except for me, because I don't wear underwear. It is so true, like, is this stuff worth... What am I saying?